Good evening, respected delegates. So, welcome you all. This line, this mantra is very important for all doctors and even all healthcare professionals. That is primum non nocere. Above all, do no harm. That was quoted by the great Hippocrates. But if we consider our Indian history, then also during 700 BC, in the Charak Samhita, there was clear-cut mention that every therapy may possess some risk, and we need to be very cautious regarding that risk monitoring. And if we go by the evidences worldwide, the occurrence of adverse events due to unsafe care is likely one of the 10 leading causes of death. And in high income countries, there were lots of studies done that suggest 1 in every 10 patients is harmed while receiving hospital care. And this harm can be caused by range of different types of adverse events. And unfortunately, but it is true that 50% of them is preventable. Even if we consider the data from low middle income countries, there were around 2.6 million deaths due to this unsafe care. And there was an interesting study conducted which suggests that around 2/3 of all adverse events resulting from unsafe care causing more than 2 years lost to disability and death. And another important data that as many as 4 in 10 patients are harmed in primary and outpatient healthcare due to unsafe care. And up to 80% of this harm is preventable. And most detrimental errors are related to diagnosis, prescription, and use of medicines. Here, I just want to give emphasis on diagnosis part also, because we all are now suffered from a huge impact of COVID-19 pandemic, and there was some distance between doctors and patients. And before pandemic time, there was a study conducted in UK around 2015, which suggests every one patient out of 15 patients, it was seen that the anemia was not tested clinically. The pallor was not tested. So that particular study suggests the maximum of this unsafe care is related to diagnosis diagnosis related faults, and most often we not do the proper clinical history taking and the necessary diagnostic steps. So mostly we discussed about unsafe medicine use, but this is another area which they claimed that is the tip of the iceberg we are just doing now regarding the patient safety oriented things. So we need something, some science and activities to detect, to assess, to understand, and to prevent adverse effects of any other medicine related or vaccine related problems. And that is the pharmacovigilance. So respected delegates, there is no doubt in that drugs are indispensable tool for addressing health problems and disease, but they are not without risk. Only adequately informed doctors and sometimes some enlightened users can balance the expected benefits against potential risks of medicines in given context. So there is a nationwide program of pharmacovigilance. The pharmacovigilance program of India was launched in our country in 2010 and being run satisfactorily. The National Pharmacovigilance Week will observe during this 17 to 23rd September 2021, and we have a series of programs. So the theme of this week is pharmacovigilance, a step towards patient safety. We all know that 17th September is World Patient Safety Day. And we are really delighted that InnovoCare E-Academy and the ADR Monitoring Center Pharmacovigilance Program of India, Netaji Subhash Medical College Hospital at Patna are jointly organized this week-long virtual CME series in collaboration with National Coordinating Center PVPI. So with that, we are really thankful that we have these different fields experts who will give their valuable opinion on different subjects. So,
Dr. Shamastar?
Yeah.
Dr. Tripathi is now, I think Dr. Tripathi, are you there?
I have joined.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we have our chairperson of this total event, Professor Shantanu Kumar Tripathi, who is the head of pharmacology and academic dean of Netaji Subhash Medical College, Patna. So this is today's program. So Tripathi sir had joined, Joy Prakash sir joined.
He said that he will take 5 minutes. You can explore whether he has joined. He is joining what he said.
Okay. So we have some introductory comments from Dr. Joy Prakash, who is the officer in charge PVPI and senior principal scientific officer of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, Ghaziabad. Then followed by a lecture by our own Professor Shantanu Kumar Tripathi sir on the topic pharmacovigilance indispensable for patient safety. After that, we have a keynote address from Padma Shri Dr. Shashank Joshi sir, who is a senior clinic endocrinologist at Joshi Clinic. We have following this, we have 7 days event, and tomorrow we have a talk on signal management and disproportionality statistics in pharmacovigilance from 8:30 p.m. and that will be done by Professor Abhijit Hajra sir, who is a professor of pharmacology from the Department of Pharmacology IPGMER. Then on Sunday from 8:30 p.m. there will be a panel discussion in collaboration with Allergy Asthma Research Center. The topic will be management of drug allergy. The panelists are Dr. Niloy Das, who is a renowned dermatologist, along with Dr. Shoibal Moitro, who is a pulmonologist and allergologist, Dr. Aratrika Das, who is also an allergologist, and myself. Obviously, we have chairperson Professor Shantanu Kumar Tripathi sir, who is a noted clinical pharmacologist, and Ms. Shatobhisha Mukherjee, who is a pharmacovigilance expert. She will moderate the panel discussion. Followed by, we have a lecture on safer prescribing in elderly by Dr. Shougata Sarkar, a clinical pharmacologist from School of Tropical Medicine. Then the next day, 21st September, we have a program on lecture on medication safety in the critical care setting by Dr. Kaustav Shaha, who is also a clinical pharmacologist at School of Tropical Medicine. 22nd September, a very important topic will be delivered, that is drug-induced liver injury, a preventable malady, by Professor Harshad Devar Bhavi, who is a renowned gastroenterologist in the country, and he is the head of gastroenterology in the St. John's Medical College, Bangalore. Then 23rd September, we have 2 topics. One, managing drug-induced diseases, a clinical pharmacological approach that will be dealt by me. And then an important area, that is adherence and patient safety, that will be delivered by Dr. Shreyashi Dasgupta, who is also a DM resident at School of Tropical Medicine. With that, may I introduce respected Dr. Joy Prakash, who is the officer in charge PVPI, Senior Principal Scientific Officer and Officer in charge of NCC for Pharmacovigilance Program of India at Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. He has done B.Pharm and M.Pharm in Pharmacology from College of Pharmacy and doctorate from the Department of Pharmacology at All India Institute of Medical Science, New Delhi. So he had several publications and also books, chapters. So we are really honored to have him. So may I request Dr. Joy Prakash sir to give us some important knowledge sharing. Over to you, Dr. Joy Prakash sir. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you, sir.
You have to appropriately unmute at the right time. Dr. Joy Prakash was not being unmuted. I was not being unmuted right now. So unmute Dr. Joy Prakash also. He is unable to. So unmute and also start his video.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
We can hear you now.
Am I audible? But
Yes, sir.
my video is still off.
Sir, you have to open your video. Yeah, now your video is okay, sir.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Respected Professor Tripathi and all the colleagues and the galaxy of the participants for today's virtual CME series being organized by this college, Netaji Subhas Medical College and Hospital at Bihta. I feel honored to be the part of this virtual CME series, and I really congratulate the organizers for organizing this very important event on the occasion of the World Patient Safety Day. I extend my best wishes to all the participants and to the organizers on this occasion. Today is also the initiation of the National Pharmacovigilance Week throughout the country, and in the morning we had the inaugural session and it was attended by many participants from India as well as from abroad. As you all know that pharmacovigilance is a very important scientific activity, and you also know that the quality, safety and efficacy of medicines is very important. We cannot compromise either with the quality, safety or the efficacy of a medicine. The moment we compromise with the quality or the safety or the efficacy, the risk of the patient increases and we may not be getting the optimum, the desired benefit from the medicines. Today, the medicines play a very important role in our life, and any moment whenever we fall sick or for the prophylactic purposes also we use the medicines, and here comes the role of the pharmacovigilance. You will agree with me that over a period of last 10 years, pharmacovigilance program of India has undergone vast expansion, and we have tried to put in place the quality management system and procedures in place. Today we have 395 adverse drug reaction monitoring centers in the country, and we have also given the approval to about 50 more new ADR monitoring centers. And once everyone, these such new institute accept the terms and conditions, then this number will rise to about 450 adverse drug reaction monitoring centers under the ambit of Pharmacovigilance Program of India. I also congratulate this college and this hospital that this has also become the part of the Pharmacovigilance Program of India, and we expect the reporting of adverse events through the different channels of ADR reporting which are available today. And you will also be pleased to note that today our ranking at the international level in reporting the adverse drug reactions is significant, and today our ranking is 9th at the global level as per the WHO program for international drug monitoring. India had taken a lead in establishing the systems and procedures, and it became the part of the WHO program for international drug monitoring in 1998, and overall around 5 lakhs of individual case safety reports are there from Indian population in the WHO database. When we compare the quality and the completeness score of the individual case safety reports from India versus other countries of the world, our standing is also quite high, and the credit goes to the active collaborators and the AMC coordinators, deputy coordinators, pharmacovigilance associates posted at different AMCs, pharmaceutical industries, and other interested partners. Many institutions still may not be having the causality assessment committees, and if such institute AMCs are there and the participants are listening to me, I request them all to constitute causality assessment committee. The healthcare professionals' contribution is enormous to the reporting of the adverse drug reactions, and around 60% of total reporting is by the healthcare professionals. Initiation of the Pharmacovigilance Week by the Pharmacovigilance Program of India, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare will further boost and give the opportunities every year for raising the awareness about the pharmacovigilance and the safety of the medical product. I will not be taking much time, as you have a lot of the program to convey, and I extend all my best wishes to all of you for organizing this important event, and I extend again my best wishes to the organizers, especially Dr. Tripathi, who has been a source of guidance to me as and when we sought his help, not only in the matters of pharmacovigilance, but he is also an active expert for contribution to the National Formulary of India, and we will soon launch the National Formulary of India 2021. We are just waiting for the release of the latest edition of National Formulary of India. I also just want to draw your attention to the Indian Pharmacopoeia. We have the current version IP 2018 in place, and two addenda have also come out, one each in 2019 and 2021. So I also request you people to kindly have both the documents, the National Formulary of India as well as the Indian Pharmacopoeia current editions for the benefit of the students, faculty, researchers, etc. in your respective libraries. So with this, I again extend my best wishes to all of you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your kind words, sir. And may I request now Professor Shantanu Kumar Tripathi, sir, to deliver the lecture on pharmacovigilance indispensable for patient safety. Over to you, Tripathi, sir.
Okay. So thank you very much. And first of all, I must thank our good friend. That must be very, very busy today, because today is the first day of the National Pharmacovigilance Week, and he is one of the chief architects of this whole function, which will continue for 7 days throughout the country, in different parts of the country. And I am grateful that at a very short notice, Dr. Jayaprakash had so kindly agreed and spent some time with us and gave his valued comments. Thank you, Dr. Jayaprakash. And it's a great privilege on our part on behalf of Netaji Subhash Medical College and Hospital, Beta Patna. We have recently been granted the Adverse Drug Reaction Monitoring Center under PPPI. And this particular program has been made possible by joint hosts of the Subhash Medical College and iNovocare Health Hub Solutions, iNovocare E-Academy rather. So I must thank iNovocare for being the co-host in this 7-day-long event. So today I have been given the responsibility of starting the deliberations and the proceedings. And as we know that the theme of this year's National Pharmacovigilance Week is Pharmacovigilance, a step towards patient safety. So in line with the theme, we thought that the first presentation or the first session should be also in the line of the theme. So I have made a little change in this theme, but broadly the pharmacovigilance is indispensable for patient safety. So most of us, if not all of us who have joined today, we are actively involved in pharmacovigilance. We know what pharmacovigilance is, but still there is a reason why the first slide I'm going to project is the definition of pharmacovigilance, because I would try to look at the whole issue from a different angle. Up till now, we know when we talk pharmacovigilance, and particularly under the pharmacovigilance program of India, the kind of expectation from us is to be able to actually detect and report good quality adverse event experience that is to be reported as a part, and that is a responsibility entrusted upon us in the different adverse drug reaction monitoring center. And as you know, we all know what's going to happen with whatever inputs we are providing to the National Coordinating Center. Ultimately, that is being collated, analyzed, okay, and it is also being shared with the global database with at Uppsala with WHO, and that's how the things are happening. And at the national level also, are following the analysis, some actions are being taken, regulatory actions are also being taken over the last decade or so. So you may say that we have been enough matured now. We know what we are doing, and how it is happening, and we are also getting some results. Okay, so there has been good number of regulatory actions have been taken on the basis of what actually we are doing in the different peripheral centers, adverse drug reaction monitoring centers. But then I am going to look at this from a different angle, that whether now it should be the time that beyond this, what else add to this, or what else we can do that in order to at least self motivate ourselves, or maybe to create a kind of good pharmacovigilance environment or good pharmacovigilance milieu, and all these in the broader context of ensuring patient safety. So let us see. I have a very brief presentation. This will be a little more thought provoking rather than, it's not really prescriptive. I would urge upon all of us that let us think over this, and if it is feasible at our own level, at our own institution level or community level, let us try our hand in this. Let me go to the next slide. And the next slide is nothing but the definition of pharmacovigilance. I always feel that it is always good, if we are engaged in pharmacovigilance, we should always remind ourselves these actually. And this definition is very, very good definition propounded by World Health Organization. And it says that pharmacovigilance is the science and activities. Yes, there is a lot of science behind it, but more importantly, it is also the primarily it refers to a series of activities. These activities actually lead to the detection, the assessment, the understanding and prevention adverse effect any medicine or vaccines. So adverse drugs we need to assess, we need to understand it, and the purpose of all these. Now here you see, when we talk of pharmacovigilance, it could be looked into from two angles. One is pharmacovigilance prior to the product is marketed, and pharmacovigilance after the product is marketed. So although usually or conventionally, whenever we talk of pharmacovigilance, we are probably a little more to think about all marketed products. But then pharmacovigilance is also equally applicable when drugs are being applied or drugs are being used in trial volunteers, clinical trial volunteers prior to marketing, while the investigational medical products, they are put to clinical trials, whether it is in phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3. And there is always a possibility, rather greater possibility of adverse experience, okay, happening to the trial volunteers in all these 3 phases. So pharmacovigilance will also equally apply in pre-marketing setting. And in post-marketing setting, what we are more used to, unless we are also conducting clinical trials, in clinical trial safety reporting, that is entirely a different kind of ballgame. In post-marketing safety reporting of medicines, we collect the suspected adverse drug reactions. In India, under the Pharmacovigilance Program of India, we are expected to otherwise capture the essential data or relevant data into a prescribed form, suspected adverse drug reaction form, reporting form. And this form has also evolved since 2010, since when it was launched, the program was launched. But the latest form is to be used. And after we collect this form, we have to process it, we have to analyze it, and the causality needs to be analyzed, and also we have to report it, dispatch it to the National Coordinating Center. And there also there will be further analysis, and at the national level also there will be causality analysis will be done, and further application of statistics that will be given, and a final call will be taken whether the how it is causally related, etc. And then more and more similar kind of drug and adverse experience pair or drug and adverse reaction happening, which will be the signal management can be put in place, and finally decision will be taken, regulatory decision or otherwise will be taken. That's how this has been shown here: ADR collection, signal detection, evidence regulation, and not only that, beyond that, after the regulatory action, it is the responsibility of the concerned industry or the concerned company marketing operation holder to also properly communicate it to the prescriber. And there is also a need for measurement, further measurement of effectiveness. There are need for capacity building, audit inspection, etc., etc. So that is post-marketing surveillance. Now the question is that at the level or at the institution or at the setting where the primarily the adverse drug reaction is collected, it is collected from a patient who is exposed to the drug and who has suffered some adverse experience. Now, the management or the clinical management of the adverse effect, that needs to be, that needs to be emphasized. And then besides that, whether there is also a short loop feedback that if this is happening, then at the institution level also, whether we can also appropriately respond to this or react to this, that needs to be also considered. This is time when we should consider this. Apart from, we should not be just playing a role that in a very passive manner, just to collect information and dispatch it, almost like a post office. But then we should also play a more responsible role at the local level also, at the local site also, where from the ADR is collected, and going back to the patient or going back to the prescriber, going back to the administration, trying to find that why this adverse reaction happened, because we all know that a vast majority of the adverse reaction, they are actually preventable. Let me go back to the previous slide. There you see that this prevention through the participation of the regulatory authority, we have to wait long time, and finally it is possible that and appropriate and properly capacity building and the prescribing behavior changed, then only possibly we can prevent. Okay, so I was talking about that IP efficacy. There it should be optimally effective. Otherwise, lack of efficacy is also may be responsible for adverse experience because of undesired or not suboptimal efficacy, and beneficial outcome will be less. That is also considered to be adverse. If there are serious adverse events, that needs to be tracked even in the clinical trial setting. And finally, the public health is to be improved. Here, public health means you have to think of prevention. Risk benefit is to be properly assessed, and efficacy of, for rationalized use of the investigational product. And then appropriately, it has to come in the label, how to educate the prescriber, and also sometimes, if necessary, or ideally, it should be always necessary to the patient. Patients are also to be educated about how to ensure safety of the medication. Okay, so how pharmacovigilance can be considered to ensure patient safety. If you just compare these two definitions, so when you talk of patient safety, how it is defined, it is basically avoidance or prevention and amelioration of adverse outcomes or injuries stemming from the process of healthcare. So that is what is patient safety. When you talk of safety, you are actually meaning you are going to avoid it. How are we avoiding it or preventing it or ameliorating it? Pharmacovigilance is the science and activities relating to detection and understanding, etc., ultimately for prevention of adverse drug reactions. So there is a close association or similarity in the approach or in the strategy of these two concepts, patient safety and pharmacovigilance. What I am trying to emphasize in today's discussion is whether we can try to take a preemptive in preventing or minimizing preventable ADRs. That means that whether as pharmacovigilance there is a tendency or there is a possibility that whenever we talk of pharmacovigilance, we expect that we have to detect an adverse reaction and report it and analyze it for causality, etc. But then we have to think a little beyond, out of the box, and think that whether those preventable errors, we could identify them and take steps in order to prevent or at least minimize them preemptively, not reactively. So when the adverse experience occurs, we are responding to it or we are reacting to it. Instead, additionally, I'm not saying that it should not be done. Definitely, it has to be done always. But beyond that also, as a pharmacovigilance associate or as a pharmacovigilance expert, whether and to what extent we are also taking some preemptive steps to minimize or prevent ADRs at the beginning. We don't allow the ADR to happen. So how much step we are taking? I believe that it is time now, 10 years are gone, that PVPI should also think of taking some proactive steps in order to prevent ADRs. That means one such ADR, some of such ADRs are that because of prescribing error, dispensing error, so those errors could be minimized, then those ADRs can also be minimized. And there are many other ways, many other kind of causes or reasons why patients may suffer because of iatrogenic causes, and they are to be then minimized, and it is possible to prevent them. Now, I'm trying to draw your attention to this strategic framework of the Global Patient Safety Challenge as was founded by World Health Organization 4 years back in 2017, and it was actually called Medication Without Harm, Global Patient Safety Challenge. So it has been made. Our aim is to have medications without harm, which may be a little rather you can say impossible, because you cannot think of a medication without at all any harm, but we can try to minimize harm. But this has been identified as a great patient safety challenge. Now, this challenge, how to address this challenge? Broadly, there are 4 domains of the challenge: patients and the public who are consuming medicines, healthcare professionals who are responsible for administering, prescribing, dispensing and administering medicines, and also educating people and capacity building in use of medicines. Health professionals responsible for that. The medicines themselves are also one of the important domain of the challenge. And finally, the systems and practices of medications, they are the 4th domain of the challenge. So the consumers of medicine, you can say the facilitators of consumption of medicine, the medicines themselves, and the systems and practices of medication. So these are the 4 domains. There are 16 subdomains, 4 in each of these domains. Okay, like when patients, public, involvement of the patient organizations is important. The reporting by patients themselves are to take responsibility if they actually expect safer use of medicines. They also have their role. So proactive role by the patients, but then they need to be also properly educated how they can play a meaningful role. The training is extremely important. The public awareness and medication literacy is also extremely important concept. So these are the subdomains under this broad domain of patients and the public, how they can actually contribute to a situation where possibly medication without harm can be made possible. If not absolute, it is relatively. Healthcare professional, it is the broad domain under which the subdomains are education and training in reference to medication use, communication and teamwork, and then capability at the point of care and incident reporting and learning. And when you talk of medicines themselves, the right product at the point of care, the logistics, storage and disposal, the naming, labeling, and packaging of medicines, and the product quality and safety. All these are, each of these are very essential components in under this broad domain of medicines. And then finally, the systems and practices of medication, which involve the subdomains like leadership and governance, prescribing, preparation and dispensing of medicines, administration and patient monitoring, and evaluation of the whole process of the practices of medication. So all these will also are to be considered under this broad domain. Okay, and all these have potential for change for the better. And the key action areas are: one is polypharmacy, where we need to proactively try to reduce the number of medicines. All redundant medicines are to be deprescribed. Redundant medicines are to be deprescribed. High risk situations are identified, and the transition of care related issues are also to be identified. So these three are the action areas that have been identified. And if we can work on these three areas, to a great extent, we can reach to the goal of medication without harm, which otherwise remains a huge patient safety challenge. So these are the three action areas. So I think apart from the way we are going in under the pharmacovigilance program, proactively we should also try to promote this in order to ensure patient safety. And each of our AMCs, okay, almost around 400 AMCs now, active AMCs. So they should also be sensitized and motivated to go beyond the routine daily reporting of newer adverse drug reaction. Beyond that also, we should take some extra steps in order to ensure patient safety using this model. Okay. So, and this is WHO has come up with these 5 moments of medication safety, and it is our duty to sensitize each consumer or each patient who are being prescribed medicines. The patient is supposed to start a medication, then taking the medication, and then again visit the doctor again. Doctor may add another medication, and there should be a good scope for the reviewing of the medications, and finally there is a possibility of stopping medication. So these are 5 moments where the patient himself can take a great active role: starting medication, taking medication, addition of another medication, reviewing of all medications, and if necessary stopping of medications. And this 5 moments of medication safety, and each of these moments there could be risk, there is an inherent risk involved. So the patient should be conscious about that, and the patient can also remind the healthcare provider when the patient is passing through these moments. So what happened? When the patient is passing through these moments, and to facilitate this, WHO also has come up with a WHO MedSafe app, in which these 5 moments for medication safety, the patient can actually actively use this app in order to be in order to engage into this safety ensuring environment. So I think time has come that we should also try to get involved in these kind of activities in order to ensure patient safety. That pharmacovigilance is not just detecting and reporting and analyzing and regulatory action. So there are many other things that we can actively do, and that's what I thought, that let us raise these issues. And I find Dr. Jayaprakash is still there, so I would be very happy if some serious discussion starts in this line. And if we can engage ourselves, our army of pharmacovigilance proponents, we can engage ourselves into these additional responsibilities or activities, so that in years to come, we can at least contribute to patient safety activities, and we can reduce preventable adverse drug reactions could be prevented really. Thank you very much. I think that is the last slide. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So now we will move to our next part. So we are really privileged to have the keynote address from Padma Shri Dr. Shashank R. Joshi, who is a senior endocrinologist from Mumbai, and he is also the chair of International Diabetes Federation of Southeast Asia. So he had sent, because of some meeting in that COVID, he is a member of COVID-19 Maharashtra State Task Force, also meeting in that task force. So he had sent one video, recorded video today. So I am just playing that. And is my screen is visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, sir.
So for this week, we'll be celebrating the National Pharmacovigilance Week. It is said that for every drug which works, it will have effect and it will have a side effect. And it is very, very crucial and important to recognize adverse events of drugs and report them appropriately. And there is a need to build a very robust Indian pharmacovigilance system and ensure that we have a safer world to live with. Today is also the World Safety Patients Day for maternal and child health. So pharmacovigilance essentially is a science and all the activities related to detection, understanding, assessing, and preventing an adverse event of a possible drug-related outcome. And the magnitude of the problem is huge across the world, and India is no exception. And we all know that the cost of drug-related morbidity and mortality, it will lead to annual budgets of millions of dollars. And we know that at least every third to every second adverse drug reaction is preventable by appropriate education. In fact, historically, if we see the various milestones in the pharmacovigilance, we know that way back in 1937, over 100 people died due to renal failure due to an elixir of a sulfolamide dissolved in diethylene glycol. Recently, we had tragedies where we had the JJ glycerol tragedy, which was very similar to that in the 70s and the 80s. In 1938, the US FDA made a preclinical toxicities and pre-marketing clinical trials mandatory. It was in the 50s that we discovered aplastic anemia for chloramphenicol. And we now know chloramphenicol is more in veterinary use, though it has still come and had a comeback. But it was usually by 60s in the US and Europe, and in the 90s in India, that we started building some robust hospital-based drug monitoring programs. We are also fresh in 1961 with the thalidomide disaster. We know WHO in 1968 established a international drug monitoring program. We also know the quinolones and quiniquinol had the subacute myelooptic neuropathy in the 70s. And continuously we are searching for adverse events. So when we are looking at rational and safe use of drugs, it is very, very conditional and important to recognize that we are also having a lot of novel and new clinical entities being launched across the world. We also know that we are going to discover Make in India, Made in India compounds. We are going to research into the Ayush system of medicine, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it's Unani, whether it is Siddha, to ensure that they are safe and very, very meaningful for consumption. And when it comes to drug safety and pharmacovigilance, this is the key. So obviously assessing the adverse events and communicating the risks and benefits of the drugs in the market is the key. The key is information and education. And in this era of the Google and WhatsApp University, pharmacovigilance has become direct. But remember, there are many players in pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance has World Health Organization. We have the Uppsala Swedish Pharmacovigilance Monitoring Center. We have our own Government of India Ministry of Health National Pharmacovigilance Centers. We have hospital and academic institutions of excellence like Dr. Shambhu, Dr. Tripathi represent, which are also pharmacovigilance centers of excellence. We are all responsible healthcare professionals, and it is mandated on us to report adverse events. And so are our patients. And of course, we must thank the various consumer advocacy groups and media for having the strong pharmacovigilance built up. We all know that the objectives of pharmacovigilance is to look at for unknowns and the drug interactions for newly marketed drugs. We need to ensure that if this is happening more frequently, and COVID gave us a unique opportunity to study and do pharmacovigilance, it allows us to recognize, detect, diagnose, and appropriately handle various adverse events. WHO established a program for international drug monitoring of identifying and analyzing new drug adverse events. And based on that WHO database, that became a reference source of signal on web-based. And then, of course, various WHO, ICMR, and national centers of pharmacovigilance have excelled. We need to remember that when we are doing drug monitoring, we need tools of management for clinical information. We need to build data repositories. We need to do a lot of training. We need to have softwares for case report. We need to make it user-friendly. We need to ensure that it's a methodologically studied and appropriated. And then once we do that for every country, we need to keep widening the horizon. And we need to ensure that the Drug Control Journal of India, the CDSCO, they continue their mission for safer India. In order to have safe India, particularly in the allopathic system of medicine, it is very, very crucial that we continue maintaining the highest standards of notification, of drug monitoring, and continue our global drug monitoring endeavors. I think India has been at the forefront. I fondly remember one of my teachers, Dr. Nilima Shirsagar, who led this whole pharmacovigilance movement from the State GS Medical College, Mumbai, and she's a clinical pharmacologist. And many of these world authorities from India have led, like Dr. S.K. Gupta and many others who have led this whole, pharmacovigilance movement across India. I congratulate once again Dr. Tripathi and Dr. Shambho for continuing pharmacovigilance and excelling in this space. They are very unique in their own way. And it's very, very important to recognize that every stakeholder is involved. Every clinic in India should ideally be a pharmacovigilance center. And every one of us should report appropriately, correctly, in a very, very easy way. What is key is communication. What is key is appropriateness. What is key is ensuring that we get the right alerts. And therefore, when we are looking at rational and safe use of drugs, which is the ultimate goal of pharmacovigilance, every person on the earth needs to be involved. And let us all be committed with a common goal to make this world a safer place to live with a benefit-risk ratio of drug therapy, which is in favor of the human race. And that is really the endeavor. Once again, the time has come for all of us to join hands to share the common goal of delivering safe drugs to our patients. And that's really the goal of this National Pharmacovigilance Week. I wish this meeting all the success, and I congratulate you for this unique thing. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
We are really thankful to Professor Shashankar Joshi for giving this video recorded. So may I request Professor Shantanu Kumar Tripathi sir and Dr. Jai Prakash sir to give their comments on some questions that has been raised in the chat box, and then we will. I also try to unmute all the participants if they want to try or they want to make some comments. We have a very short time though, but we will take some couple of comment or question now. So may I request Professor Tripathi sir?
Yeah, there was one comment in the chat box about, I think it is Dr. Professor Parthore. Okay, just had a look at the WHO MedSafe app, not very helpful for prescribers. What prescribers would benefit from would be an app that will tell us instantly of drug interactions when we keep adding a drug to existing list of medicines, so that an alert is given to the prescriber. Any comments from Dr. Tripathi or Dr. Jai Prakash on Indian app? Yeah, Professor Rai, yes, you are right. But then this particular MedSafe app of World Health Organization, it is really not meant for the physicians. It's actually meant for the patients and the people who consume medicine. It's on the 5 moments that we just described, 5 moments of medicine use, starting from when it is first given and then they are taking it, etc., etc. so that they can intervene. So it's kind of engaging patients and reminding them they are also responsible for ensuring their safety in reference to medicine use. And in these 5 moments, they can also engage themselves into kind of meaningful discussion with their prescriber, with their healthcare professional, healthcare practitioner, and try to ensure that that means these are, with the use of the app, they are actually given an opportunity, or they are actually being reminded that yes, you can engage yourself into kind of dialogue with your prescriber. And many times it has been, again, that has been validated, that active participation or active engagement of patients to a great extent ensure patient safety. So that's how this app has been created. And this app is actually meant for the consumer to use. You are very right. There is a legitimate need for app to be used by the prescriber. There are some kind of solutions, technology solutions are available, particularly when somebody is prescribing through computers, online prescribing or computer prescribing. So there it is possible, and it can. There are some softwares, or there are some technology solutions that are coming up. Many of them are under the validation stage. I do not know whether any such technology solution has come which is in very common use, but then maybe we can expect in another year or another couple of years some such technology solutions will come. So thank
Can
you
I
very
say
much,
something?
Professor A. Yeah, please, Professor A. Yeah, please.
Thank you for that. It's very important topic we're discussing today. I find this app very anglicized and not very suitable for our Indian population, certainly not our rural population. It's okay for doctors, I thought. I opened it, I downloaded it. It, first of all, needs to be in a vernacular, in our local languages. That's one. And then the whole...
Fully agree, because you are very right. We just actually referred to this, that there is a need for this kind of thing, and we need to customize in our own setting. And in India, of course, it will be a great exercise because it's a multilingualistic nation.
Absolutely.
So we have to have local vernacular thing. Yes, you're right. Thank you.
So this is a guideline from the WHO. So we take the WHO's guidance, but we need to Indianize it. In fact, localize it to every state. More importantly, what I feel as a doctor at the point of prescription, and there's so many medicines that we're prescribing, I need to know the drug interactions instantly for any new drug that I'm adding to the list, because I'm leaving the responsibility to the patient to come and inform me of any review of the medication. This is basically, some sort of defensive medicine. It's my job to make sure that I'm adding a medication, and I should be getting an alert, rather than the patient who is starting and then taking and then adding a new medication, coming back to the doctor and telling them that there's an interaction between the two. It's not very professional, in my opinion. And then, so this app I thought was a medical app, and I immediately downloaded it. That's not very useful. The second point, at the moment, you see there is so many fixed dose combinations and so many trade names. This is a historical problem. So that I think we're all getting confused, because the problem would start with the prescriber prescribing, and then comes the pharmacovigilance. Before we blame doctors for making an error of prescription, I think we need to, help the doctors about the immense number of drugs that are now available in the market. So what is Professor Joy Prakash and yourself doing about it, sir?
Yeah, it is very, very pertinent question, but then you are very right. But then we have to understand that it's a multifaceted problem. It's not the question of blaming one stakeholder or the other. So it's a problem where possibly each one of the stakeholder, they can contribute to the creation of the problem, and it is they only who, if they are enough conscious, they can try to at least minimize the burden of the problem to a great extent, provided they are, first of all, we need to admit that there is a problem. Okay, so there is a problem, and we need to bridge that. We need to bridge the knowledge gap, bridge the attitudinal gap, and also change our behavior, so that in order that we can, at least to a great extent, we can minimize them, those adverse experiences of our patients which are preventable. Why not prevent them? That's what I was trying to emphasize in today's discussion. And then there are, because you are very right when you started your discussion, that if a drug is, we expect a drug to be active, we have to also accept that there would be some risk involved, and we need to identify the risk. Okay, so and with the advent of the technologies, thanks to the technologies, at least we are a little better off than probably a couple of decades back.
Yeah.
But now it is possible, we can think of, we can dream that yes, in another say couple of years or another 5 years, there will be definitely solutions available. And in fact, there are some agencies which are offering some kind, although that is a little expensive, and many a times it is ill-affordable even by many doctors. Okay, if you think of, there are some technology support is already available, but again, unless we have built a group, okay, and try to have group subscription, then only it is possible. There are some available, some things are available already. So they are doing a lot of, you can say, synthesizing the information, drug information, whether it is drug-drug, adverse drug-drug interaction, whether it is proper possibility of wrong dose that has been prescribed. So all these, there are some solutions coming, but maybe more simpler and more acceptable kind of point of care solutions will be coming. But there again, all these app or all these technologies, they are developed by engineers. But until and unless we can tell the engineers about the problem, they cannot identify them. Unfortunately, we doctors, we are not coming up and collaborating and joining hands. So that's, I'm expecting the another 5-7 years or another decade's time, things will be much, many, lot of issues will be resolved to a great extent. Yes, Dr. Rai.
No, we are very fortunate that we have the top person from our pharmacovigilance in the country, Professor Joy Prakash, with us. And as you perhaps know, but many others don't know, I'm dialing in from England, Liverpool, and we have the British National Formulary. I do not know what is the corresponding we have in India. I have only had the SIMS, and this basically gives me prices, but nothing more details about each individual drug. So I'm sure I'm not sure whether there is an Indian national formulary. I heard about 2015 version with some amendments in 2019. To Professor Joy Prakash, sir, do we actually have something like the BNF, like an Indian national formulary, which every doctor can carry either in the hard copy or an electronic copy on their smartphones? Everybody has got a smartphone. So if they want, they can immediately look it up and check at drug reactions, drug interactions, doses. So this, I think I want to start the problem solving from the doctor's end, the prescriber's end, because if something goes wrong, the patient gets hurt, but the legal liability lies with the prescriber. So we need to, take care of that. And it's not easy for anybody to practice medicine these days. There's so many drugs in the clinical arena that we are using, even with generics, becoming doses, drug interactions, and all the rest of it. Drug legibility, how do we write, whether we use capital letters while prescribing, whether we avoid writing trade names. That's another second level discussion. But just to set the ball rolling, and I think, sir, 5 years is too long a wait. A lot of people will get harmed and have side effects, and many will die from adverse drug reactions. So since we have Professor Joy Prakash, I'm deliberately raising some provocative themes so that
you're right. In fact, every day people are dying. Unfortunately, in countries like ours, we do not admit. In other Western countries, there are a lot of data that out of the adverse reactions of drugs, what is the magnitude of the hospital admissions because of adverse drug reactions, the financial implication of adverse drug reactions, etc. Regarding the formulary in India, yes, we have national formulary in India. The latest edition, there are a lot of care has been taken in revising that. I think Dr. Joy Prakash can also share his views on this national formulary of India. my comment in that is, while British National Formulary is otherwise, it is not just published every 6 months or
3 months.
revised every 6 months, but then it is also distributed to all prescribers, as I
No,
know.
Not anymore.
No, it's
It
not
used to
like
be
that.
free. Not anymore. Now it comes for price. The
It's
department,
priced.
it become very thick
Earlier
and
it
fat.
was
It was free
earlier it
before.
was free.
Yeah, not
But
anymore.
then, so far as Indian formula is concerned, it is not free. Okay, maybe it is not possible to give it free right at this moment, but it is now
Electronic
at
version.
least available. Electronic version. Regarding electronic version, Dr. Jaiprakash, you can have your comment. We also discussed this to have it in electronic version. Dr. Jaiprakash, if you are there, if you can come up and have
West
your
Bengal
comment.
Medical Council.
No, it's a national issue.
Oh, NMC can distribute it free to all registered practitioners.
It is actually published by the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, which Dr. Jaiprakash is heading. So he is at the helm of affairs of publication of National Formulary of India. Dr. Jaiprakash, if you are there, if you could come up and give your opinion on this. I don't know whether.
Maybe Sir is busy with another Zoom.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay.
I think it's good we're raising it because we got lots of
Yeah,
our junior colleagues, and you are the senior most person after Dr. Jaiprakash, perhaps. So it's good we're raising. And then the fixed dose combinations is another big problem I have.
Yeah,
And
in India,
prescribing.
at least in the last 1 decade, there has been a lot of work in the irrational fixed dose combinations. As you know, there are a lot of litigation also, people who receive license for whatever reasons, they managed to get license even from the state level, although the state drugs controller had authority to issue license, but somehow it occurred 10 years back, 15 years back, 20 years back, and it continued. And when government tried to otherwise correct the situation by identifying the products which are unscientific, then the industry went to the court. Okay, and there were a lot of issues, and finally, of course, thanks to effort by many stakeholders, and finally, after say I think more than a decade or so, a good number of these fixed dose combinations, they have been otherwise withdrawn or banned or put to the back bench. They are no longer available, no longer used. Newer fixed dose combination, they are much more rational and without sufficient reasoning or evidence, they are not being licensed. And the possibility of licensing or possibility of getting it to the market through state level, that has been stopped. That has been stopped for at least, I think, more than say 7 or 10 years almost. So that is the situation about irrational fixed dose combination. So
I had a question for Dr. Shashank Joshi on Ayush. He wants to introduce
Dr. Shashank Joshi is not there.
But you can take the question.
Yeah,
I'm a great enthusiast of Ayush, just that I have had lots of patients with toxicity, neurotoxicity from unknown chemicals. They have been prescribed by some specialties in the Ayush, and I have sent them off for toxicology. So the standardization of Ayush medicines is slightly, uneven, and that's why I see a lot of neurotoxic patients from various different chemicals that are in the manufacturing process or as part of the chemicals that are introduced. So that will cause a problem. Already we have a problem with the drug interactions in Western medicine. Now, if we have add the Ayurveda and the Siddha medicines and homeopathy medicines, it will make the whole picture very blurred. But, they're also medical practitioners. They will also have the right to prescribe. Where do we go in regards to a patient who is coming to us?
This is another big area. This is a huge area of again lot of issues involved, and because in India, you know that all these systems go in parallel.
Yes.
And in fact, many of these, say, if you talk of Ayurveda, it is otherwise for many centuries it is there. While modern medicine in India is only around say 100 years or a little more than that, not more than that. So naturally then there is, if you think of the popular acceptance, is much more with the Ayurvedic products or homeopathic products, but the kind of stringent regulation that is available in for modern medicine products is truly speaking not there in Ayush. And the manner all problems started with the proprietary Ayurvedic products. Okay, Ayurveda, the way it was practiced since ancient times, there was the concept of proprietary products were not there. It was very say individual physician, they would use to practice in their own manner. They used to prepare the medicine and hand it over. But now, because it is being marketed as a proprietary product, a lot of standardization is required, because the source are plants and there is still long way to go in reference to proper harmonization in the standardization. And things are moving though a little slowly, but then in the right direction. That much can be said.
Again, it would have been nice for Professor Joy Prakash to give his views on this, because Minister of Health and Family Welfare, and although I'm sitting outside India, I think I'm quite heavily tracking everything that's happening in MOHFW. So Ayush is part of the government plan strategy, and Professor Joy Prakash has come back. So maybe Professor Tripathi, you could put the questions to him on my behalf, because this is certainly important, maybe not for me, but certainly for the upcoming generation and for the millions of people of India. We need to have clear guidelines from stalwarts like Professor Joy Prakash and yourself, Professor Tripathi. So I'll let you. And I just hear from Dr. Arun Hebbar that the Indian Pharmacopoeia is under process of publication this year. Is the first time it's coming out, or it's been there? A new edition is coming out. I was not too sure.
Dr. Jayaprakash, there are a couple of questions for you. Dr. Jayaprakash. Are you there, Dr. Jayaprakash?
Yes, he's come back. Sir. Yes, Professor Jayaprakash is here. We can
Dr.
see
Jayaprakash, there is a question. Can you hear Dr. Jayaprakash? I think he needs to be unmuted. Dr. Shambhu, are you there? Please unmute Dr. Jayaprakash.
No, sir is already unmuted. There is some network issue, I think, sir.
May I say something, Sir Professor Tripathi? I am Dr. Chandan from ESI Joka.
Yeah, please come up. Yeah, please tell me.
Sir, actually, as you all know, that we have a specific outdoor. We have a Ayush outdoor, and you will be surprised to hear. I mean that there is a huge queue. I mean we are just beside that, because the pharmacy of that Ayush outdoor is just beside that particular outdoor, and people are taking medications from there. And I actually went to that doctor. There is one doctor, medical officer, and he has two subordinates. They are not doctors, just like assistants. So I asked him, what are the medications are you using? Let me see the kind of medications are you using, because we have been dealing with this modern medications, and basically we are practicing evidence-based medicine. So just show me your book. So he gave me 2-3 books, and you will be surprised, sir, that I tried to go through this, and most of the medications I couldn't understand. I mean, everything is written like it is written in our pharmacology book, the effects, adverse drug reactions, and all these things. Everything is written over there, but those drugs are absolutely not related to our drugs. So that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. And the problem is, if something is happened with these drugs prescribed by this Ayush practitioner, they are also very shaky, and they actually, what I think, they are very cautious regarding selecting their drugs and their dosing, because they know that the kind of adverse drug reactions may happen, and then it will be tackled by the people who are actually practicing modern medicine, or rather allopathy, or whatever you say. So
I think this discussion we can keep it for some other day, because there is no Ayurvedic practitioner probably here present. It will be unfair on our part to unilaterally talk about something which we are not either otherwise expert in. We don't know
Okay.
what Ayurveda is.
I don't know. Yes.
There is no Ayurvedic physician present here, so it will be a little unfair. Yeah. Dr.
Professor
Jayaprakash, are you there? Dr. Jayaprakash?
Yes, sir. I am
Okay.
here.
Achha, there are a couple of questions for you. Number one, Dr. Ray has
Yes,
raised
sir.
this issue. This is regarding the National Formulary of India that is almost ready for now publication, the next edition. Whether is your plan for distribution among the prescribers? And if not free distribution, at least the awareness of our prescribers in the country that there is something like National Formulary of India that is available, and how to get it. If I want to have a copy, maybe I have to pay 1,000 rupees or whatever, but where should I place my order? So this is number one. This was one question. The other question is regarding publication of pharmacopoeia. Okay, so when was it first published, and then now whether it is being amended, and regularly it is amended, or newer addendum is published or whatever. So this is about pharmacopoeia. The third question that was put was whether IPC has any role
Okay.
in standardizing
Sir, please, one by one, please,
Ayurvedic
sir,
medicine.
I will respond one by one.
Yes, please.
Sir,
These are the
I
three
will
questions.
respond to these questions one by one, sir.
Right.
As far as the National Formulary of India is concerned, sir, the order can be placed through the website of the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. The information is available on our website, sir. For
Okay.
the purchase of National Formulary of India, right now 2016 edition is the current edition, and we just want to release the latest one to the best of our effort. Within a month's time, we will be releasing the 2021 edition. It is
Dr.
already
Jayaprakash,
in the final stage.
my advice is if you can also sensitize the different professional bodies of doctors, say for instance IMA, say for instance the different Association of Physicians of India, Diabetology Society. So all major professional organizations, that there is this National Formulary of India is available from this source in this is the manner. The second is whether online version of this
Yes,
formulary would be available. So that
sir,
also
we agree with your suggestion. We will, sir. Yes, sir.
okay.
Coming
Can I-
to the second, sir, should I respond to next question?
Yeah,
Can I
please.
make a request, sir, on the first question?
Yeah, please.
If this is available on the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare website, free of cost to all registered practitioners of India, and we can download it to our smartphones or to our desktops, say with our registration number, free of cost, as part of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare initiative for all registered practitioners in India. That will be the way forward, because if it costs 1,000 rupees, I will have to think about
Sir,
buying it. And it's for patient safety.
2011. But we are also planning to bring out the mobile application of 2021 edition of National Formulary of India. It is in process.
Free of cost to all practitioners, please.
Dr. Jayaprakash, you can
That
take
is
note of it.
a policy decision.
Yeah,
So
you can take note of it, and you can
Right, sir.
log into the right place. Yeah. Next question
Right.
is about the pharmacopoeia. Quickly.
sir, the 2018 edition is the current version of addenda, which are released in 2019 and 2021. They also form the part of the Indian Pharmacopoeia. So, as per the second schedule to the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, the current version is the official and effective version of
Okay.
Indian Pharmacopoeia.
Okay.
Though it
Thank
is,
you very much.
and it is being published at a frequency of every 4 years, the main edition and the addenda in between.
Okay. Fine. The third question is about whether Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission has anything to do with the quality assurance of Ayurvedic product. My understanding is no. My understanding is no. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, no, sir, you are right. And to take the quality assurance part of the Ayurvedic medicines,
Yeah.
there is Pharmacopoeia Commission for Indian Medicine.
There is a
That
separate
is
Pharmacopoeia
also-
Commission. Yeah.
Yes, that is under the Ministry of Ayush, and this commission is also nearby the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. So with the medicines standards, both are located at Ghaziabad only, sir.
Okay. Great. Great.
And the
So thank
Ayurvedic
you.
medicines,
Yes.
sir,
Yeah,
Ayurvedic
yeah.
medicines in our country are manufactured in accordance with Schedule T of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. So their standards are governed by those statutes and the rules set out as per the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940 and rules 1945 there under, sir.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much. I think we cannot afford to take it any further. It is already
How about harmonizing
past
it? We need to harmonize the two wings, the Western medicine and the Ayush medicine, into an integrated system of medicine for India. And the
Okay.
lawmakers
you.
will need guidance from yourself, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rai. You are again suggesting something which is very inflammable. None of the two parties will agree to this probably. But then all opinions are respected. And Dr. Jayaprakash, you can also take this in the
Sir,
right
your
spirit
concept
and
is-
discuss it in the right level. Yeah.
Sir, the harmonization of pharmacopoeias is on the top of the agenda. And as far as possible, the standards of medicines are harmonized with the international pharmacopoeias. But we have also to at the same time see the feasibility and the applicability of the standards, whether the Indian pharmaceutical industry is in a position to have the infrastructure, instrumental facilities, etc., so that performed by them. So wherever there is a scope of harmonization, we harmonize. Where there is no scope, we cannot compromise with the quality standards, and we take all due care with consultation with the respective stakeholders like the pharmaceutical industry. And as it is a public document, so the consultation with the expert and stakeholders is necessary. Without it, it will be difficult, because then the state or the central drug regulators will make cash hold immediately that you are not right on this particular quality control test. So if anything is not feasible and possible, then the stakeholders immediately raise the query to IPC or to the Pharmacopoeia Commission of Indian Medicine, as the case may be, like for the homeopathic, Ayurvedic and Unani medicines.
Cannot
quality
hear,
control,
sir. Anyway, saying very important things.
the PCIM and for the
Okay, okay, thank you. So we understood that there is conscious attempts being made, and hopefully similar kind of standards are being followed in both the two systems. If we consider that, take that as harmonization of the standardization process, so it is being practiced. But then if you talk of harmonization in the practice of the two systems or the different systems, I think that is very, very challenging. And of course, that is beyond the scope of our discussion today. So thank you very much. It was very lively discussion. And thank you, Dr. Ray, particularly. And Dr. Jayaprakash, Dr. Shambo, and all the members of the audience for having patience to engage ourselves into this discussion today. So today was the first day. Hopefully coming 6 days will be also equally, will have the privilege of listening to great lectures and discussion, and send over to Dr. Shambo.
Less inflammatory.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. We are really thankful to Dr. Joy Prakash who gave us time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. So we are also thankful to Professor Ray sir, Partho Ray, for raising some important questions. And it was a great discussion today. So we hope tomorrow we get all of you in this learning process about signal management and disproportionality statistics in pharmacovigilance. And we will have a speaker, the Professor Dr. Abhijit Hajra, who is the professor in the Department of Pharmacology from IPGMER, and he needs actually no introduction. So again, good night to everyone, and tomorrow we'll again meet in this same platform with this same ID and password. Thank you once again, and good night.
Good night, everybody.